Hi, my name is Leyna Borgmann, and I am a 7th grader at Manchester Junior Senior High School. Today I'm interviewing Matt Adams, who is a teacher of electronical and robotic engineering class here at Heartland Career Center. So my first question is, how long have you worked here at Heartland?
I'm just finishing my second semester, so I've been here a little less than a year.
My second question are, what are your job duties here?
Here at Heartland Career Center, I work with students, teaching them basic electricity, AC/DC electrical systems, residential wiring, robotics, three-phase electrical systems, basically industrial type electrical. So they get a pretty broad range of experience with electronics and electrical systems.
Okay. My third question is, what training or education did you receive to do this job?
That goes back a few years. Out of high school, I was in a trades program at high school. Then I went into the workforce, did a number of different things over the years, spent 10 years at Chrysler in Kokomo, and was a production worker there. While I was at Chrysler, and then a period of time after Chrysler, I did some classes with Ivy Tech in Kokomo. So I took HVAC and electrical systems and so forth there. So that's where I got a lot of the experience that I did. After I left Chrysler, after 10 years, I went to work for AT&T Telephone Company in Indianapolis. Spent a couple of years there and got laid off, which wasn't part of my plan. But ended up going to Verizon, which became Frontier Telecommunications here in Wabash area, and spent most of 10 years working in and around the Wabash area for Frontier Communications, internet, that type of thing. So a lot of on-the-job training, as well as some college with Ivy Tech.
My fourth question is, how did you pay for your training?
While I was working at Chrysler, part of that was a work-based program where they reimbursed me for tuition. I had to pay for the books. They reimbursed for the tuition as long as I took classes that applied to my job at Chrysler. Before Chrysler and then after Chrysler, the classes that I took in HVAC and electrical and so forth, and I had to borrow some money and pay back those loans in order to try to improve myself to have a better position in the workforce.
My fifth question is, what is the best part of your job?
The students. The students here are a lot of fun, and I really enjoy when I take a student who something clicks, when they really understand how something works, or they. A lot of times it's kind of after the fact. I teach them the theory, we work through it, and then a couple days later, or sometimes, a month later, they come back and said, I did this at home, or I did this someplace else, and I understood, I knew what I was doing, they were impressed, that type of thing. And that's what's really fun and makes it really worthwhile.
And a second part to that question is, what is the hardest part of your job?
The students. Trying to find a way to teach each student the way they learn, because all students aren't the same. Sometimes that's a challenge. The way that I understand it, or the way it makes sense to me, isn't always the way it makes sense to a student. So trying to figure out a way around the bush that they can understand what we're doing. And most of the time, it's the hands-on part of it. That's the piece that really brings it together. When the students get to do it themselves, I can stand in the front of the classroom and teach all day long, but when the students get it in their hands and start to put things together, that's when it really becomes a lot of fun.
My sixth question is, what is your typical day with this job?
Typical day, I arrive before 8 o'clock each morning, spend a half an hour or so preparing for my classes for the day. I have a morning class that lasts from 8:40 until 11:30 a.m. And then I have a lunch break for half an hour, and then I have an afternoon class that somewhat repeats what we did in the morning. This at Heartland Career Center, there's 2 years of electronics and robotics that you can take. So you don't learn everything in your first year. You have an opportunity to come back. In the same classroom, I have students who are in the first year and students who are in the second year. So for some of them, some things are repetitious. It repeats what they learned before. But for other students, we're working to expand their knowledge beyond what they did the first year. And so you've got 2 different levels of students in the same classroom, which is sometimes a challenge, but it also is helpful too, because you have students with an understanding and knowledge who can work with you to help the students who are first year students. And so that's kind of the day. Our day ends here about 2:50, and students get on the bus and go to their home schools. So that's my typical day. Usually I spend an hour or so after school getting things ready for the next day, grading projects, that type of thing. So.
My 7th question is, what tools or equipment do you use with this job?
There's a lot of different pieces of equipment that we use. Some of it's behind us. There's a robot here that's kind of an industrial robot. This is like what factories like Chrysler in Kokomo, other large factories use robots very similar to this one. This robot, in fact, is one that what the students learn in here is above the level of most people who operate that in a factory, because we are teaching them to program from kind of an engineering level of programming on the robot. So that's one of the tools that we use. Multimeters, just hand tools to strip wire and that type of thing. We have a couple different pieces of equipment in our room that aid students in learning the electrical systems, how circuits work. The 3-phase electrical, that's a 600 volt AC electrical system, so that's a lot of volts. That's enough to kill you. So students have to have a good understanding of how that's safe to work with, and we lock it out so that there's a process that we go through. This is also a advanced manufacturing class, because a lot of what we do in here is related to the advanced manufacturing environment. So the process that we use to lock out the equipment, to work on it, to make it safe, is very much the same as what they use if they go into industry. If they work in a factory and they have to shut equipment down for maintenance, they lock that out, and there's a lockout tagout system. It's universal, so it pretty much applies. We do it exactly in here like you would if you were working at Chrysler or another company that had industrial equipment. So it's interesting. Students come back to me and say, that's exactly what they did in our classroom, that they do that at work. And that's always interesting to know that I'm up with the standards of the workforce. It's not been that long since I've been outside of teaching and in the workforce, so that's one of the reasons I believe they chose me, is because my experience and relating what we do to the workforce is important to our students. So.
My 8th question is, when you were a student, what were your favorite classes?
Anything that I used my hands. So I took all in high school, going back to high school, I took all of the industrial arts classes. I took construction trades, I took auto mechanics, machining, welding. Any of the classes that I used my hands, those were the ones that I was most comfortable in. When I went to Ivy Tech, the time that I spent there, I was in HVAC and electrical, so again, I was applying principles and using my hands. So anything that I could use my hands, that's what I was interested in. So it's interesting that I end up here at Heartland Career Center teaching students how to use their hands to learn trades, to learn electrical, learn robotics, and work with that.
My 9th question is, as a kid, what did you want to do in your future?
I always wanted to build something. So I thought I wanted to build, maybe go into construction, build homes. It took me many years to figure out, to get to where I'm at now. So I've done a lot of different things. I spent several years working at Chrysler, working in a factory. I didn't enjoy a lot of that, so I was looking to do something else. I really enjoyed working for the phone company. In the meantime, I've done a lot of things on the side that I really enjoyed. So even though I maybe didn't have the career that I enjoyed the most and going to work, I was able to do things on the side that I enjoyed. I built my own home a few years ago, so I built it from the ground up. I've worked on vehicles in my shop, and I built my shop myself. So that's always kind of what I wanted to do, and I've still stayed with that even when I wasn't working in a field that was what I wanted to do. I did those things on the side, and so I guess that's how you enjoy your life, is if you can't find a career that's absolutely what you love to do, if you can do those things in your spare time, makes life fulfilling.
My 10th question is, what advice do you have for students who want to pursue a similar job to yours?
My advice is find like Heartland Career Center, find a career center where you can get immersed into to the field. Here, as I said, we do a lot of stuff that's hands-on. The students, probably 50 to 60% at least of the amount of work that we do is hands-on. The students are working in labs, applying what we've learned previously to that. So get in that. Get into a place where you can apply not just learn skills, but you can use those skills and build upon those. You'll learn pretty quickly whether that's something you like or not, and then you can make a choice as to if you want to stay in that or move someplace else. And that's the neat thing about Heartland Career Center. We have so many different options here that a student could come in the first year, possibly in electronics and robotics, spend a year here, learn a lot of skills, but maybe figure out that that's not the direction that they want to go in their career. So they would have the opportunity to maybe go into IT, into computers and technology, maybe machining, maybe something else piques their interest, something that they saw here. We also do some of the projects where we build our robotics. We work with the welding shop. The students have to draw out the plans for their robots, and then the welding shop makes those pieces, and then they come back to them. And so some of the students being exposed to those other classes are like, oh, I didn't know they did those things over there. I didn't know what was offered. I didn't know what it entailed. So having an experience in one class maybe gives them some knowledge and some experience someplace else, and then they want to follow that up. So maybe their second year they would choose a different area at the Career Center that they'd want to attend.
And my final question is there anything else you would like to tell us about your career?
I guess the interesting thing about my career is that I spent 10 years at Chrysler. At Chrysler, I used Fanuc robots, very much like this one behind us. It was part of my everyday job. The machine that I ran had 2 of these robots, and so I had to work with those robots on a daily basis. So that gave me a lot of the experience that applies to my to the robotics programming that we do here. I went to several different classes with Chrysler on Fanuc robots and learned the Fanuc robot, and then since coming here to Heartland, then I've taken some really in-depth training with the Fanuc robots to really understand those pretty deeply. Then my time at the phone company with Verizon, which became Frontier, all of the electronics work that we did with circuits and wiring and troubleshooting and just all of those. So all of those experiences together have prepared me pretty well for all of the different things that we do here. Back, I mentioned to you, I built my own home. That project that I did all of it. I wired it. At the time I started that, I didn't know really how to wire a house. So that was one of the classes I took at Ivy Tech to learn how to wire, how to do electrical, basically construction electrical, so that I knew what I was doing to complete that project. So it's just a lot of different things over the course of my life that has prepared me to come here and be the teacher. So it really now that I'm here, it's really a good fit for me for all the different things that I've done over my life.
Well, thank you for answering my questions today.
Thank you for the opportunity.